The Craigville Motel is working to reopen after being forced to close due to health code violations, and the search for an assistant town manager continues. We have these stories on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Wednesday, October 26th, 2016. I'm Sarah Mannel. Owners of the Craigville Motel are taking steps to reopen after being forced to close earlier this year due to health code violations. The owners took the battle to court, and today a settlement agreement went before the Board of Health. Town Attorney Ruth Weil presented the settlement agreement to the board prior to the vote.
A settlement agreement has been signed by the applicant for her license, and we are asking you in a series of motions to basically recommend the settlement agreement, and I gave you that motion to the town manager. As part of the record, I want to submit several documents that will be Appendix A. The settlement agreement will be signed, the license will be held in escrow because there are a number of violations that still exist. And I just want to make it clear for the record that even though the license is being issued, it's going to be held in escrow, and there's a series of violations that will have to be corrected before that license is released. The next hearing, as I understand it, is on November 22nd. At that point, there'll be another report to see if these violations have been addressed. If they haven't been addressed, then there'll be an opportunity for full-blown hearing if the applicant still doesn't agree with the latest inspection report. But I think the board knows the town has been very patient with this, and I think everybody's trying to be fair, but at some point we have to have a facility that meets all the necessary requirements, and I think that's what we're all working to. So without further ado, I'm going to give you the series of exhibits that are reflected in the appendix of the agreement. I'm here to answer any questions you might have about the settlement agreement, and I would welcome those if you have any concerns that you don't think are adequately addressed or any questions. This would be the time to bring them forward. So what I'm going to submit for the record, so it's on the record, is a report from the West Barnstable Fire District. And Dave Pannon is here if you have any questions about that, if you want to spend some time to look at it. A report from the Building Commissioner dated, there are two reports, October 19th, 2016 and September 13th, 2019. 13, I'm sorry, and a report from the Board of Health dated October 11th, 2016. So those are appended to the appendix. Those are the outstanding conditions that have to be addressed before that license will be released from escrow.
Has the fire district seen that part of his agreement?
We have seen the part of the agreement. You are being provided with a copy of our report from the inspection with outstanding issues.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm prepared to answer any questions you might have about the terms of the settlement agreement. If I haven't made anything clear, I would be glad to clarify it. And you do have several motions before you that reflect, I think, what we've just discussed.
Weil says that as part of the agreement, the Craigville Motel will become part of the Wyndham Hotel Group.
A lot of this is almost a catch-22. One of the conditions in the settlement agreement is that they become a Wyndham, a Knights Inn franchisee. They need a license before the inspection process can start. I guess I understand that the franchise is willing to allow for the inspection even if the license is held in escrow, but if there was no license, the process couldn't start. So we think that's an important part of the settlement agreement because the franchises have certain standards that they have to, have their franchisees abide by, and we think that's another protection, for the town, even though we have independent conditions, as you see in the settlement agreement.
Weil says that the motel will have to comply with Wyndham standards, and that Wyndham officials will also be monitoring the property.
Making this motel a Knights Inn, which is part, as I understand it, the Wyndham hotel chain group, I guess it's called, and each of the different hotels in this hotel chain have certain standards that they have to comply with in order to get, the Knights Inn logo on their business. So they're still going to be owned by, as I understand it, by the Patel family, but it's going to be scrutinized by not only by the Board of Health, by this chain, which does yearly inspections, I understand, and has certain requirements of their own.
Attorney James Connors represents the owners of Craigville Motel. He went into specifics about that agreement after some board members expressed concerns.
The Wyndham label is a marketing tool. It's a standard. It's almost like a seal of approval from a separate entity. What an applicant does is they are the owners of a business. They seek a franchise. They sign a franchise agreement. Within a period of time with the franchise, they have their business labeled with the label of the franchise on top of it. So somebody that's traveling from far and abroad would recognize this as a place that's under, in this case, the Wyndham chain, and they say, okay, we know the standards of this place, and therefore that's a place that we would be willing to stay at. AAA and other vendors offer that as well. Most of the owners of these franchised facilities are privately owned. Not all, but certainly most are. And what the property owner does is that they sign an agreement. It's rather exhaustive. I have a copy here. It's in several parts. When they sign the agreement, they have assuming they have their license to operate, the chain comes in. There are certain inspection requirements that have to be met within 6 months of issuance of the franchise, which they've already paid for. However, the franchise itself is not part of the day-to-day operations. They have their standards, they have their inspection team. They come out in the beginning frequently towards the end of the initial 6-month period, they'll come out less. And at that point, if they've met all the requirements under the chain, the franchise is extended for a period of time, either a year, or I believe in this case, for 2 years with annual fees. So essentially, to put it in a law firm term, as a private attorney, you have an office with your own name. As an attorney that works for a law firm, you work under, say, Hale and Dorr. Wilmer Picking Hale and Dorr, but I'm James Connors. I work for that firm, as an example. I don't work there, obviously, but that's the label is that's my law firm. The same goes with the Wyndham chain or Hilton or whatever other franchise it may be.
And the Board of Health voted to approve the settlement agreement, and they will hold the Craigville Motel's operating license in escrow until all Board of Health requirements have been met. The owners hope to complete that checklist of requirements before going back before the Board of Health next month. The search for a new assistant town manager continues. Town manager Mark Ells says they are narrowing down the applicant pool.
We had originally, as I've told you, over 150 applicants. We did an initial screening, brought it down to 53, ranked those 53, and started interviews with the people who came out higher in the ranking. And at this point, we're going through that process. We've done a first round, and we'll continue to have discussions. I hope to have the position filled by the end of the calendar year, if possible.
And you can hear from Town Manager Mark Ells every Wednesday morning on Barnstable This Morning. That hour-long news program airs weekdays at 8 a.m. On tomorrow's show, we will chat with Hyannis Fire Chief Harold Brunel during our community profile segment. We'll chat with Town Councilor John Flores. Plus, we'll have all the news and information you need. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mantle.